Welcome to Cooking with Chris. Today we're doing meatballs in the air fryer. Now this is my traditional meatball recipe that I've been using for years and love it. And it's one of my favorite things to make. But I've never done it in the air fryer. So I wanted to see, will the air fryer make them any better? Will it be any quicker? Are there any advantages to using the air fryer instead of the oven? So we're going to check that out. This is my traditional meatball recipe, which I will have down below in the description. If you need a good meatball recipe, I highly recommend it. We're going to start off with a pound of ground chuck. It's 80-20. And I also have breadcrumbs and milk in this recipe as well. But I do something a little different. And first of all, I just traditionally have plain panko breadcrumbs. That's just kind of my go-to breadcrumb that I have in the pantry. For some reason, I end up with these panko seasoned ones with like Romano cheese or something in them too. But you can use any breadcrumbs you like. It's the technique that I use that's a little different. And I don't remember, it was like one of the first meatball recipes I ever made years ago. I don't know if I saw it on YouTube, in a cookbook, on a TV, in a blog, or where I saw it, but the chef or whoever it was kind of hydrated the breadcrumbs in the milk before adding them. So instead of just adding breadcrumbs into the bowl with the meat and the spices and then adding milk and adding egg and then mixing everything together, they took the breadcrumbs and hydrated them in the milk and then kind of added that. And I don't know if it was because they make the meatballs fluffier or what exactly the reason was, but since the recipe I tried with it turned out really well, it's just kind of the way I've always done it since. And by the way, I actually do this when I make meatloaf as well. So it's a 1/4 cup of breadcrumbs, whatever ones you like to use, and a 1/4 cup of milk. And you just kind of let that kind of turn into like an oatmeal consistency, if you will. 1 egg. And I do have my measuring spoons out here, but you know what? I never really measure. So we're going to call it a teaspoon of some good old W sauce, Worcestershire sauce, whatever you like to use. That looks good. Hot sauce. Just a couple of splashes, add a little chili garlic flavor in this case. Where I do measure it out is when it comes to the powders. We're going to go with 1 tablespoon of garlic powder and 1 tablespoon of onion powder. Some dried thyme, and about 1/2 tablespoon dried thyme. Same with the dried basil. And I don't mind if there's a little extra basil in there, so we'll call that 1/2 tablespoon. What I do like, but very light amount, is oregano. I do like to have a little bit of oregano in here, but we are going to just make sure it's not too much. So about a teaspoon of that dried oregano. So one of my favorite flavors, so we can check in. You can see this is starting to get into like oatmeal like consistency. It's starting to suck up all that milk. So that's good. One of my favorite flavors is fennel. And I put fennel seed in my meatballs. What I used to do, I would take the fennel seeds, put them in a cutting board, pile them up, and just run them down with my knife. And half of them would just kind of bounce all over the countertop and onto the floor, and it would never really get really finely chopped. There'd always be kind of like seeds still in the meatballs, and that would kind of drive me nuts. I don't know why it took me forever to get a spice grinder, but I finally did. Now those fennel seeds are nice and powdery. So it's about a teaspoon and a half of fennel powder, or ground fennel seed, I should say. And then, of course, salt and pepper. We're ready for that breadcrumb mixture. And I don't want all that milk, but I do want basically all of those breadcrumbs. Usually I go with plain breadcrumbs, and usually it's panko. That's just what I typically have on hand. So these have some extra seasonings in them. So there's still a little milk in there, but we won't worry about that. But it'll work. And then finally, about a half a cup of grated cheese. And you can use whatever cheese you like. A couple different cheeses. Obviously, there's some Romano in that breadcrumb mixture, but I'm just going to go with some Parmesan. And I like it grated because, I'm sorry, shredded and not grated because it's just, you can kind of see the cheese in the meatball that way. We're going to get in here and mix everything together really well. Now it is ground beef, and when it comes to ground beef and mixing it with things, you kind of don't want to overwork it because it will get tough. But we do want this to be, well combined. We got a lot of flavor in here. So one last thing that I like to do, we'll go ahead and get rid of the gloves. Just like to come in a little more pepper. A little more salt. I'll move this over here. Sheet tray, parchment paper, foil, whatever you want to line it with. I even sprayed it with a little oil so these wouldn't stick. Normally, they go right here into the oven, 400 degrees, about 25 minutes. If you want to try these in the oven. Scooper, just to portion everything out. So we'll kind of go in here, get a little scoop action. And we don't need to worry too much about them looking like meatballs quite yet. We'll do that in a second. Right now, we're going to portion it out, A little bit more to that guy. Looks like we got one more here. So yeah, everything's portioned out, and then we'll come in and we'll round them off a little bit, just with our hands. Okay. All right, so let's go ahead and get this on. 400, we're going to preheat it to, and we're going to cook for 10 minutes. So hit play to let it preheat. When it stops blinking, we'll throw them in. Okay, it beeped. It says it's ready. It's counting down. So we are going to toss in our meatballs. So here's the thing. It depends how big your air fryer is, right? I can do these in the oven in about 25 minutes, all in one sheet pan. In the air fryer, can I fit all of these in here and still maintain, with an air fryer, you want to make sure that you're leaving space. Otherwise, you're not really air frying. You're just kind of cooking. So I think we got enough space here. We do. They all fit in here nicely. Make sure you can see that. They're, we gotta just shake them around a little bit. But we're good to go. So we'll see in 10 minutes how they look. All right, so as the meatballs are cooking, you're probably thinking, okay, so how's this guy going to serve these things up? And I figured for this video, I'd do meatball sub. I think we got to do it right. I'm going to do a meatball sub. Earlier in the day, I made a quick little pasta sauce because I figured I'm making meatballs from scratch. I might as well make some sauce from scratch. So chopped a little onion, smashed a little garlic, a little olive oil, saucepan, cherry tomatoes. Let everything kind of simmer and break down. Hit it with the immersion blender to smooth it all out. Add a little fresh basil. Of course, some salt, some pepper. Good stuff. And I figured, well, we got to serve this on French bread? No, we're going to serve this on some cheesy garlic bread because that's how we're doing this meatball sub, right? We got to do it right. So in the air fryer, actually, before I put in the meatballs, a little butter, a little garlic, some mozzarella cheese. Stick that thing in the air fryer. Get it all toasty. I mean, look at that. So back to the whole point. Are the meatballs better in the air fryer? Well, they certainly save time because normally when I throw these in the oven, 20-25 minutes is what I need, and these took 10. So I figured, yeah, they would cook quicker in an air fryer because everything cooks quicker in an air fryer, but would I be able to do it all in one batch? And that was the thing. Like, if I got to do 2 batches at 10 minutes, well, then I'm not really saving any time. Thankfully, my air fryer, at least, is big enough to handle a whole sheet pan full of meatballs. So that worked out great. So yes, I love that there's an option to do meatballs in the air fryer, and it's a little bit quicker. So that's great. I love that. This is an 8-quart air fryer. It's the New Wave Brio Plus. I've loved this thing. I'll link it down below if you do want to check it out. But yes, air fryer meatballs, they work. This meatball sub was, of course, delicious. The homemade sauce, the cheesy garlic bread. I mean, this thing's enormous. Love a good meatball sub, but usually when I'm making meatballs, it's the classic spaghetti and meatballs. I just love it. But these also make a great appetizer. It's the holidays when this video is coming out, so all the holiday gatherings, New Year's, football games, there's plenty of times where you're going to need a few good appetizers, and this definitely is one. So you can even make them really early and then just keep them warm in the crock pot. Just make sure there's some sauce in there, and before you're gathering, you get a nice warm appetizer, you know, to go along with all your other chips and dips and other stuff. Speaking of the holidays, happy New Year. Thank you for checking out the channel. I think I'm going to keep rolling with the focus on the air fryer, so if that's your thing, consider subscribing. And check out the air fryer playlist too. Meatballs in the air fryer, they turned out well, basically half the time, so it's a win for sure. Full recipe below if you want to try it. I'm cooking with Chris. I'll catch you in the next one.